The Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority presents the 4th Annual Health Summit with a theme entitled Violence, America's Challenge. This is a segment from the Town Hall discussion hosted and moderated by Roland Martin. Our panelists are Chairman John Eves, Essence Magazine founder Susan Taylor, Judge Penny Brown Reynolds, Sheriff Ted Jackson, Commissioner Larry Johnson, and Judge Willie Lovett.
When we talk about, again, this idea of how do we impact, I'm also interested to know, that's why I asked each one of you for one idea, in terms of, yes, models. What can we model? Because what Susan just said, I think is critical. What that pastor is doing in East St. Louis, I believe if it works, you go study it and then you replicate it.
That's right.
To me, this is not about trying to figure out something else. And we mentioned education. I'm gonna throw this out. And it's very interesting. If you read The Education of Blacks in the South, 1865 to 1930, by James D. Anderson, he talked about there were more than 500 schools that were set up by slaves during slavery. There was a one sister in it he quoted who said that she was responsible for more slaves being killed than any white plantation owner because she taught them how to read, and then they found out. And so it's very interesting to me when I have these discussions nationwide about charter schools. Now, let me throw this out. Here's what's interesting. KIPP is a national charter school program. KIPP got started because one of the white co-founders saw the black woman across the hall, how she was using rap music to teach the kids English and math, and they took what she was doing and that became the basis of KIPP's curriculum. A black woman created that. You have Marva Collins, who had her own school in Chicago. She recently passed away. She passed away this year. Now, here's what's interesting. And the reason I'm throwing out charter schools, I'm a believer in it because I believe in every form of education. We have mentoring programs that we only serve 20, 30 kids. But if we have the capacity in these states to actually control the whole school, now you got 500, 700 kids under your direction every single day. Now you also control the budget, and you also control who gets hired, and so you also control all those pieces there. But what I find to be interesting is black folks are some of the biggest critics of those very schools, but we're begging a public school system, can you please to educate our kids? Is that also part of the issue in terms of how do you take control of your community, but also take control of how your kids are being educated, and now you're impacting their minds. And what we saw in New Orleans, they didn't wait for somebody else from central office to bring in mental health counselors. They incorporated that into their model. Is that also a potential solution for us to take back our communities that have an impact on violence?
Without question. Susan talked very positively about Atlanta, which is a great city. But I think the Achilles heel of Atlanta is the public education system. 76% of the folks in our schools are Title I. In other words, it's an overwhelmingly poor school system. I live in Southwest Atlanta. I chose to put my daughter and my son in Mays High School. But Roland, I am an exception in terms of middle class, well-educated, putting my children in the school system. We have a large independent school system in Atlanta. We need to practice what we preach. Middle class folks, those with means, have to get involved in the school system. Not just putting our children in the school system, but getting involved. When I go to the PTA's meetings or the principal coffees, I'm one of the few that's there. But when there's a football game, it's crowded. And so we need to get involved. We need to support our school systems. And I think what you're saying is a strong school system, a strong school in a community is the anchor.
Because here's what I was here for an event, we showed the feeder program. The high school was F, the 4 middle schools were F, and the 8 elementary schools were F. So literally that kid from the kindergarten through 12th grade are going to all F schools. If you go into where those schools are, you're likely going to see resources Fs, like you're likely going to see high poverty rate in those zip codes. And again, this is one of the many solutions, Whether you say fix the existing school, do a charter, do a magnet or whatever, but this goes back for me having a different mental focus in terms of how do we confront it. And I think what we are participating in our own demise by not taking advantage of different ways to educate our kids. And I threw this out to the alphas. I said, there should be, over the next 5 years, literally 50 alpha academies across the country, and 50 omega academies, and 50 delta academies. There's a group of deltas who launched a charter school in Detroit. My point is, if you take it out, because I'm talking about infrastructure, because our organizations have international leadership, we're regional, state, undergrad, and grad. So we're touting membership in excess of 250,000 people. That's using your infrastructure to control your environment. You control the school, you control dollars. Now you're dealing with parents. Now you're setting when it comes to dress code. Now you're setting when it comes to discipline. Now you're doing all of those things. And so you might have a nice mentoring program, but if you're now controlling 500 to 700 kids every day for 9 months out of the year, 8 hours a day, that ends up less folks that sheriff has to deal with.
Can I add? Let me just add. Let me just add, because part of this definition of failing schools, who set the standard? We moved from leave no child behind.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna set the standard right now. Okay. I don't care what they standard.
No, I'm just saying.
No. I'm gonna set the standard.
Okay.
They can't read. They can't write.
Okay.
They can't talk.
Okay.
And they can't count. So, I mean, we can go down the steps, but when we have our kids who literally, and if we really want to be honest, all you got to do is when y'all going to Sunday dinner, y'all know who y'all don't want saying a prayer because you're going to be there all day. So the standard is very simple. We know what it looks like.
I don't know if it's that simple, because I went to the worst school. I was labeled the worst schools in America in the 80s. Bill Bennett, Education Secretary for Ronald Reagan for Chicago Public Schools. Once that label became on me, guess what they did for everybody? We all were labeled trouble, couldn't do these things. Then you got to have people empowered. Like you said, if I'm a parent and I can get in, I want to be part of the council. The council determines the budget. Most of these schools, like our chairman said, are Title I schools. You know how much Title I money comes to those schools that parents don't know or don't control? So part of it is what you're saying, we do need to get in there and educate, but it's still a system that blocks parents who want to do well to be part of those systems.
No, I understand that. The only reason I threw that out there, because when I was here, I literally had black folks who were saying, we don't like this bill that was signed by the governor. And I'm going, if a bill is there that you can take over a school or a district.
Roland,
but you have to understand.
No.
Wait a minute.
The keys to success in a school: parental involvement.
Right.
That's right.
Leadership. And teachers, and high expectations. Those are the keys to good education.
Follow me here. The reason I'm throwing this out, because I'm throwing out another way of changing, and it's a different model. What I'm saying is, if we're wedded to mentoring programs, which are important, it's also different if you say, wait a minute, if the law allows it, I could actually take over a whole school. I'm now dealing with size. I'm now dealing with scale. And so, again, imagine, I'm just throwing out there, imagine literally if black folks said, we gonna create a black controlled charter network, 50 schools, 500 students. That's 75,000 kids you would be over in terms of that number, and also if you partnered. I'm just saying, causing us to think differently that impacts violence. Go ahead.
I think that what you're saying is not mutually exclusive. You can have that too. But we want to make the point clear that when we have to step back for a minute. Here I go again, because I'm about making some money. Taking over a school and some schools is not about caring necessarily for the kids. It's billions of dollars worth of contracts.
That's right.
Oh, yes.
That's for building schools.
Yes.
And all that comes as a result of it. So what needs to happen, I agree that you can have some of the schools that you're saying. But like the children like me, grew up homeless. I come out, why do in our poorest schools, the most underperforming schools, I went to McNair because I did a UMatter tour. I asked DeKalb County, give me the 4 worst performing schools and let me go into the schools.
That's right.
All of the best resources were put on the north side of town.
Of course.
With the best teachers, the best resources.
Right.
So what we need to do is make the people who are distributing the wealth, to make them accountable to put all of the money where the money is needed. Not by saying we're going to take over this school because we can do a better job than what you're doing. If you give me best teachers, if you put more money, you give us the best of everything. You give support to these parents. My granddaughter went to Deerwood. 4 years. Deerwood was one of the schools that Atlanta, the cheating scandal. I put her there. What I did was I brought money to the table at that school. I put up money at that school myself because they did not have the resources. A lot of times, I'm speaking for single mothers right now. They don't go to the PTA meeting because they're working 3 jobs.
I got you.
They cannot go. They're trying to do the best that they can. So what I was saying is all this Title I money, all these resources that we're sending to other school districts, what we need to do is have a combination of what you're saying. We need what Commissioner is saying, Chairman is saying, we need to get involved, but we need to be realistic and very clear about when they start talking about taking over our schools, it's not just about our kids, it's about money.
No, I understand that. And what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is, I'd rather play offense than defense.
I agree.
And what I'm saying is, I think too often we're playing defense in nearly every conversation.
Yes, you're correct.
I'm trying to play some offense. And so one of the other issues I think I want to deal with.
Can I just go back to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, public policy. Until we untether, until we untether school budgets from property taxes, there's always going to be that disparity. So that's the public policy push. So where do we begin to push for that? When we go to the sanctuary on Saturday or Sunday or Wednesday night or whenever we go, there needs to be, these are the 3 things that we're pushing for.
Right.
We need to untether property taxes from school funding so that there's equity in funding. That is a huge push.
The Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority thanks you for watching this highlight presentation. We hope you've enjoyed this content. Please share the message and visit our website for new episodes of this series and others.